Alright, this video I'm going to speak about styles in the martial arts. Now, obviously, I have read Bruce Lee's philosophies, and I do agree with his views on saying that there is no such thing as style. There is just, the individual and his expression in the martial arts, and I see it that way. I don't see such thing as style. I just see people expressing themselves artistically, in the martial art. But there's a lot of people that view strongly that there are differences in style in different ways. But what I see it is that it is either you know how to defend yourself proficiently in a scientific way, more effectively than somebody else, or you don't. And it doesn't really boil down to any style. But what I see is that there is the science of fighting, and just like there is education, education is what's important. But then you see that there's all these schools, all these colleges. You got Purdue University, Ohio State, and Illinois University, all these different universities. But they're all striving towards the same thing, towards education. Now, people will join these universities and say, I'm from this school, what school are you from? And then they try to compare to say this school is better than that. But really, it's not about which school is better. It's more about what do you make out of the education that you've gotten from that school. It doesn't mean that just because you graduated from this school, automatically you are an extremely smart person. I mean, there's people like Albert Einstein, and where he's just the way, he was just extremely intelligent, an extremely intelligent scientist, and you can't go to school to be like Albert Einstein, and it's not, he's representing his own development, so that's what I see with the martial arts, is that there's just people that promote certain schools or certain styles. They're just promoters. But the individual is who he is. He got to where he got to through all the things that he learned through his life. It's not just, he just learned from this master, and his master is completely responsible for his entire growth as a human being. As a human being, when you're born, you start off not knowing anything, and you are constantly learning throughout life. You're learning from your parents, you're learning from the environment, you're learning from your friends, you're learning from family, you learn from school, you learn from books, you learn from movies, you learn from so many different things. So you can't really say that, your success in this is due to this individual person. I see that it is your life experiences that brought you to where you are at. So I see that when anybody claims a style, they're basically just promoting that style. They're just a promoter of that style. It's just like being proud of the school that they went to. Say, I went to Purdue University and things like that. It's just promoting that school that you went to. And people can go to different schools. Some person might go to Ohio State, for their bachelor's, and then for their master's they might go to DePaul University, and then for their PhD they might go to Illinois University. Like, some people change schools, so then they will basically promote various schools. But then some people, they just went to one school and then they promote that one school. And that's what I see style to be, is that it's not really about what is better than what style is better than this style or whatever, but it's just about just one way is being practiced, and then there's another way being practiced, and really the whole goal is to bring it all together, to bring all the styles together and realize that there is no such thing as style, that it's just martial arts as a whole. And some people like to specialize in certain things, and like one certain range of combat. Some people just want to specialize in that. So you might have Taekwondo artists that want to specialize specifically on the kicks, because that's what they love to do. And then you got other people that like to specialize in the punches, like boxers. They just love to specialize in the punching. Then you got wrestlers that just love to specialize in the groundwork. So there's a lot of people that love to specialize. But that's, I guess that's up to the individual's preference and what they like and what they don't like. But as far as like the art of combat is concerned, there's so many factors involved. So many different ranges involved, when you're talking about unarmed combat. Then you're talking about armed combat. And then you go into the psychological, where you're going into warfare, you're going into the military. It goes on and on. And the way that I see it is that really separating it into these different styles, it really confuses people into the reality of the situation, which is that there's no such thing as having this separation. See, Bruce Lee used to be a promoter of Wing Chun, until he found out that it's not as effective as he thought it was, because it's limited. Every system will always be limited. If you confine yourself to any system, you will always be limited. So if you limit yourself to Wing Chun, you limit yourself to boxing, you limit yourself to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you limit yourself to wrestling, you'll never reach your full potential due to that limitation. So in order to not be limited, you cannot confine yourself to any style. So he no longer became a promoter of Wing Chun because he saw that it's not the most effective. So he started to integrate a lot of different other ways of training, and not just with combat, but with the mind, the thinking, and the meditation, and the philosophy. So you see that as you start to understand the martial arts, you start to break away these limitations and stop labeling all these different things, such as, oh, this is the Chinese way, or this is the Japanese way, or this is the Russian way, or this is the American way. It's just, to me, it's just, when it comes to science, it's not really about, there's the Russian science and then the Chinese science. Science is just science. You do from the experimentation, from these experiments, this is the evidence that we have to prove that this works better than this. It's not about race and things like that. It's just about, this is what works and this is what doesn't work. So for people to throw in all these separating people, from races and things like that, I think is really silly. When you say something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, why can't it just be Jiu-Jitsu? Or instead of saying Chinese martial arts, why can't it just be martial arts? But I think people's minds are so limited by these labels that it's hard for them to get away from it, and hard for them to understand the deeper reality that goes beyond all these labels. So it's hard for me to claim any specific way, because I can't say that I do Chinese martial arts, because really I am Chinese. My parents were born from China, but I was born here. But I learned a lot from the Chinese way. I learned a lot from the Indian way. I learned a lot from the American way. I learned a lot from, African Americans. I learned so many from so many different people that how can I limit myself to any certain way? So instead of saying Chinese martial arts, it'd be more understandable for me to say human being martial arts. But then why would you even say that? It just rather just be martial arts. And then people will say, well, what kind of martial arts do you practice? And all I can really say is all kinds. But if you see this whole thing where people call it mixed martial arts, it's heading towards that understanding, is that really it's not about what way. it's not about, this style, that style. Everything is effective as long as you get good at something. If you're a really good wrestler, hey, you could use that as a really effective way to overcome an opponent if you get really good at it. If you're a really good boxer, you can use that scientific method of developing yourself to be proficient to overcome an opponent. And this person that everybody's everybody likes so much and inspired by, I think his name's Machida or whatever, that people are saying that he's representing karate. So he's representing karate, going there and showing that, hey, this is effective too. But if it's all going back to the same thing. Everything's effective. It's a matter of time. You'll see somebody going in there, capoeira, that's really good at capoeira, and he's going to show, hey, you could use this too. This works too. Everything works if you get effective at what you do. You can get a taekwondo guy in there that's really good at what he does, and he'll show that taekwondo, hey, this works well. But really, it just boils down to, hey, it's just the individual. This individual got good at what he's good at, and he's just really, he's good, and hey, what he does is effective. So I see that people are just basically representing what they choose to represent. Very easily, this guy that practices karate could say, oh, I don't do karate, I do kickboxing. And then he represents kickboxing. You see somebody like Tony Jaa who's representing Thai boxing. That's his main thing. He's Thai, and he's representing Thai boxing. You got Jet Li that's representing Wushu, the Chinese martial arts. Then you got Bruce Lee that used to represent Wing Chun, but then he realized that, hey, I'm not going to limit myself to this way. He learned so much from Muhammad Ali and like Western boxing and things like fencing and things like that. You saw, there's not just a Chinese way. There's all sorts of effective ways. So he took himself out of that representation of the Wing Chun and didn't know what to label his thing, decided to come with Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. But in the same token, it's just basically Bruce Lee's way of expressing himself. Everything that Bruce Lee learned, that's what he has to share. And really, that's what it boils down to. Just people learning to break those barriers into seeing that there is no one way that's better than the other. There's just all sorts of different ways to do different things. And for you to decide what is most effective for you, what works, what doesn't work. And really, it's just, I think the world is heading towards that. I mean, they've already had, where they see that. Where it's like, before somebody might think, oh, I went to this college, this is the best college in the world, there's no other college better than this college. But then now you got something like YouTube where you learn from the world. So to me, I think like YouTube is like, the internet in general is like the learning from the world. No matter if it's on YouTube or Wikipedia, learning from the world rather than learning from a college. No matter what college you go to, that college will never be, can teach you more than the world can teach you. So the college can never be more efficient than the internet, for example. The internet is the world teaching you. And that the internet is kind of representing what I see as martial arts. Martial arts as a whole is what is the reality. That's the truth. Not these styles and this style is better than that style. It's like this school fighting against this school. Oh, Purdue's better than Northeastern, or Southern Illinois is better than this university. It's just silly. There is no such thing as better or worse. It's the individual and what he makes out of what he learned. Whether or not he could basically be knowledgeable, be wise, be intelligent. That's what's important.